Now for nuclear. Should we, as South Africa, scrap plans for nuclear since there are so many claims of corruption at the moment and a nuclear build would possibly create scope for more? The release of the State of Capture report and the leaks of the so-called Gupta emails have strengthened calls from many different groups for closer scrutiny of government's nuclear plans. To make matters more complicated, those plans are in fact in limbo. Government made decisions and passed laws that set the groundwork work for the procurement of nuclear energy to take the percentage of power coming from nuclear from 5% to 13% by 2030. But in a reversal earlier this year, the courts declared those moves illegal. This means without an appeal, government has to start from scratch, but this time with greater public and parliamentary participation. Well, the Nuclear Industry Association of South Africa, or NIASA, has called for a transparent process, but it maintains that nuclear is the most viable option to increase our power generation capacity. To discuss, we're joined by the MD of NIASA, Knox Msebenzi. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Msebenzi. Is that a good summary of your stance, that we still need nuclear as a country?
We need baseload power. There's not two ways about it. Because it's all this talk about renewables and stuff like that at this time of the day when the sun is not shining.
What do you mean by baseload power?
Baseload is
sustainable one.
That part of the economy that is running 24 hours, 7 days a week, that sort of thing. So imagine at 12 midnight when you have to run a hospital, you would need either massive storage if you are working on renewables, or you run on a reliable nuclear power plant. So far in this country, we've been running our baseload on coal. Since we're signatories to COP21, we are saying we are going to tone down on our coal. So the only viable option, because we don't have much hydro, is nuclear for us.
My gut feel is that we shouldn't be sinking possibly R1 trillion for nuclear when solar, wind, things like that are improving all the time. So we're preparing for 2030, say. By then, things could change, and wouldn't that preservation of those energy sources be much better? Shouldn't we be very careful? Because it sounds like the technology is improving all the time.
Your question is premised on the assumption that renewables are in competition with nuclear. They are they're not the same. The example that I always want to give is to say, in a transport system, for example, we have got planes, we've got trains, we've got buses. Just because you've suddenly discovered Uber, you don't say, let's do away with all the planes, let's do away with all the trains, because Uber is the thing. Those two are not the same.
Nuclear is a mega train that costs the size possibly of your budget. It's not like everything else.
True. You don't do trains because they are expensive and only do taxis and private cars. Is that what you are saying? Good
point. Well, what about how do you weigh up the odds? Because nuclear, is clean. We know that the costs come down over time. There's a spike initially. But when things go wrong, they go very, very wrong, and you have a Fukushima, even Germany turning away from nuclear. How do you weigh up those odds?
The funny thing about a country like Germany, as we speak now, they are generating nuclear. They are intending to do that. Fukushima, Japan has got 43 nuclear reactors, and they are building 2 more. What are we talking about when we say Fukushima? Fukushima was...
So you're saying people are saying they're going to cut down on nuclear, but they're not?
Fukushima was a tsunami. Yes, the nuclear power plant did not went into meltdown, but it was because it was found by an international adjudication committee that there was a bit of negligence. So there is nothing wrong with the technology per se. But if, like anything, if we don't drive our trucks down the road properly, we can kill a lot of people. So it's all about managing the risks that we have got in any technology.
Going back to that example of the big train, we've actually seen an example, claims of corruption resulting to big deals, even a train deal. Now coming to nuclear, the concern is that, say we go up to R1 trillion, we have no idea. It's very easy to hide millions in payoffs and things like that, because you're talking about such big numbers. Given that concern, is nuclear still viable for this country, given the claims that we're looking at now?
I would answer that question by saying we should not shy away from a project because we are scared that there would be governance issues. Let us be bold as a nation and deal with governance issues.
Even if we have governance issues.
No, but if we apply our minds properly and have proper systems in place, that's number one. Number two, nuclear is one of the most regulated industries in the world. It is highly unlikely that there will be any funny stuff because everybody is holding out a lens and scrutinizing what is happening in nuclear. It's easy to do corruption with some, maybe building a road or whatever, or even building renewable energy, because there's nobody who's watching it. The whole world will be watching and looking at the figures. It's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to hide any corruption in the nuclear industry.
Doesn't South Africa's history say, though, we could have overruns, time, things that cost more? Even looking at Medupi?
No, project management with any plant, even if we are building renewables, we still have to do project management. You cannot run away from being a responsible project manager and having a nice contract written in such a way that there are penalties and so on. There are ways of running a project. We're not going to stop building bridges because we are afraid that it is going to take too long. We manage the process. What kind of a country would we be if you don't do that?
We're running out of time, and there's so many issues I'd like to get your view on while we have you. One of the things you've said is that it would be good for the economy and good for job creation. Now, the way in which this deal is structured would obviously affect that. I've heard the president of Russia, Putin himself, talking about how Russia has gone and helped countries. They give the nuclear energy basically for free initially, and then the countries pay off. Now, wouldn't that mean a lot of their own people moving in? How do we make sure that South Africans benefit, that we develop our nuclear skills?
You've touched on the financing models, which is something that can be looked at, and this is what the government is actually looking at. But as an industry, we can assist, but that's not our forte as an industry. But we will structure, the reason why we are talking about a nuclear new build. You keep on talking about deal. We don't have a deal yet. We're talking about a nuclear new build. One of the driving forces of that is job creation, and we would localize to the best of our ability. That is the aim of government. In fact, you can almost say the generation of electricity is a byproduct. The main objective of this program is economic development, job creation, and the infrastructure. When you build a nuclear power plant, you will build roads, you will build clinics, you will build schools, you build pick and pays around to support people. You don't do that with renewables at all. So there is the spin-offs that we can talk about when we're talking about nuclear power. Just go and look at Quebec and see what the environment is like. Housing for workers, 1,800 plus or minus workers at Quebec. For the same amount of generation, how many jobs can we generate out of renewables?
All right, we have to leave it there, but hopefully we can chat again. Nuclear is such a big issue in this country. The MD of NIASA, Knox Msebenzi.